I come to my week of night shifts and I basically, just come straight into the shift and I just start, working. And then during the week, as I then have time, I go through my work emails, which luckily I don't get sent to home. I can't, apparently my colleagues can because they're in the UK, but since I'm out of the country and I'm not working, the app doesn't allow me to open the work emails, which is amazing because I can switch off for 3 weeks. That's a trick for you. So midweek, I then opened my emails and just went through the usual meeting, this and the other, delete, delete, delete. And then there was something, what is it called? Points of concern. And I want to take you through this process I have. And I feel a bit like, do you want to make a podcast about this? Because I don't feel too good about it. But I think it's important that we see all sides of this. And where this basically, I had an email that said points of concern. And it was a forwarded for one of the admin team that said, can you respond to this complaint? And I'm like, what complaint? I never do anything wrong. Like, that's my brain. Like, what? And it was around the euthanasia. And the euthanasia was a success in itself in that the dog died and they got the ashes back. So a success. But they had a few things that they weren't happy with. And something that was incredibly triggering in the email was that they put Gunilla like in quotes, like this Gunilla said this, and it was like I got triggered so quickly that it was a really long email. And I think when we receive something, be an email, be somebody like talking to us about something we've done wrong or something with, and you just see this, in this case, this screen full of words about how you basically wrong, you've done things wrong and you have upset these people, no? And that doesn't feel good. And I was definitely triggered. It also doesn't help that I open these emails in the middle of my week, which means I'm already really tired. And I'm actually, it's during the night when there's a quiet moment when I do it. So I'm not always uninterrupted. But they basically had some concerns that I didn't agree with. And then there was one that I did agree with, and that made me feel a lot of shame. And I want to take you through it. So when it happens to you, you can recognize how normal it is. So in the moment when I'm reading it, what happens is that I get like enraged because this is unfair, right? What they're saying is unfair and they are not right, and they shouldn't be thinking that about me because they're not right. That is what my brains come up with, and I just the first few minutes you kind of ride with it, and you're feeling like your heart beating, and you get all like hot and you get tense, and you're like, I will show them how they are wrong, right? So the first point they had of concern was that when they brought the dog in, he had vestibular syndrome, and it was quite severe. He was kind of like really whimpering and panicking, and it was just a clear vestibular syndrome. He was lying on his side, paddling his feet. He couldn't like get up, and full nystagmus. And as soon as you tried to move him, he would panic, right? So we went through the options, and he was a geriatric dog. The owners had said that, he would already had a lot of muscle loss, so he had difficulties getting up to defecate outside. So we decided that I said, well, he could recover, but it would take a little while. And he said, why is it? No, it was a discussion I had. And I honestly thought we were on the same page. And that was a decision to put him to sleep. And then in the complaint, they wrote that I didn't even examine him properly. I didn't try to get him up and walk him. And this is where in my brain, then they're so wrong, right? Because how do you take a dog with vestibular syndrome and you try to stand them up? They just panic, they get worse. So I didn't want to put the dog through that because I already knew what was going to happen, right? But I think one of the big things that happened was that they had had a dog put to sleep, I think 6 months before with their own vet. And obviously the process had been very different. I don't know what he died of, but it was very different, right? And of course, if it's any other condition that I can't diagnose just by looking at the dog, then I would do for the test, I would examine. But in this case, it would just have, made the dog suffer even more. So I could feel myself really disagreeing with with them on that. And I was like angry at them because I thought we were on the same page. And why are they coming now to tell me this? No. And the second point they were angry about was that I had placed the IV catheter in the dog in front of the family in the same room as them. Whereas their other vet, their day vet, quote unquote, had taken the other dog away from them and placed the catheter in another room so they didn't have to see it. And then, you do that and then you come back with a neat little package with animal plus IV catheter, and they don't know if you have tried a million times and not succeeded. And I cannot for the death of me remember if I had any struggles placing the catheter. Like I can imagine if he was really old and he was paddling a bit, maybe I had to try to do different legs. I don't know. I'm normally like, they call me the catheter queen. But sometimes you have bad days, right? But good days and bad days, like everybody. But so I don't know this, but they found it distressing. And again, I felt I'm talking about it now. Doing it again. I can feel like I get really defensive. I get this knot in my stomach, and they are wrong because this shows that, and I can feel myself I could feel myself getting really, really righteous and on my high horse, my being my bonnet about I don't want to separate the animal from the owners when this is their last, few minutes together. And there was something I would try to do when I was a younger, unexperienced vet, and I knew I would be fucking around trying to find that vein forever. So then I didn't want to do it in front of the owner, and I kind of like take pride in, placing the catheter in front of them and be calm and talk them through it, no? And not separate them unless obviously they have a fear of needle. So I could feel myself getting really like righteous, really defensive. And that is definitely the ego coming up, right? Because I'm like, I'm a good vet and I really explained it. And I know how to place a catheter. And I'm the good vet because I don't separate the pet from the owner. Can you see like how it's really easy to get into this like very like me against them and they are wrong, and then I need to explain it to them, and now they need to see that this is like even better way to do it. And it's really easy, and it's very, very human to do this as well. And I could feel my brain running away with me, and I just let it, because you know what, I'm tired at night. It's at nighttime, and it's not something that's going to change the way I do things. Like since then I did become a bit self-conscious the rest of the week about euthanasia, and I would say to people, listen, this is what's going to happen. I always explain the process, but I then give them the option. I said, do you want to leave or do you want to stay, doing the place in the catheter? And it just came out a bit awkward because now I'm like self-conscious about it right after after this complaint for a few days. And I think that's very normal as well, because now my brain wants to protect me that, oh, Gunilla, be really careful. You don't get a complaint again about this, when I haven't had a complaint about that in like 20 years I've been working. But the brain is like very in this moment, right? So there comes there's defensiveness coming up. There's this righteousness. There's this like, I need them to see that they are wrong and I am right, and it's me against them. And you have to be very careful when you answer a complaint from that point of view, because these people are genuinely suffering. I don't think I checked their bill because I was like, is this because they don't want to pay and they have to find something? No, their account was at zero, which means they have paid everything. So I'm like, okay, it's not because they don't want to pay. I just wanted to check, because there's a different answer for each one of them for sure. For me, if it's them trying to like say anything, really like just throw shit at you because they don't want to pay the bill, which I've had before where people have said something completely ridiculous because they're trying to argue the bill. And then there's other times where people are hurting. These people, they had a bad experience, and that was on me, right? According to them. Although my intention was very good, they did not appreciate it. So when I then answered the complaint, I made sure that I said, like, I'm really sorry that they felt they had a bad experience, because I didn't feel I gave them a bad experience. I didn't feel you could objectively say it was a bad experience, apart from the dog dying, like, and he was sick, right? But I don't feel like I contributed to it. So I didn't agree with them that I was giving them a bad experience. So I worded it as in, I'm really sorry that they feel they had a bad experience, because that is validating their feeling, right? They're feeling they had a bad experience, and that I cannot take that away from them. They had it, whether I agree with them or not. They felt that, right? And then I very thoroughly explained, my reasons, and then I said, I obviously understand that when you had a different experience before, then I can see how you were then shocked that I did it differently, and that is understandable. No, so I'm trying to like not agree with them that I am wrong, because I don't think there's kind of a right or wrong there. It's more like opinions, no, and their interpretation of it. So for those 2 points, I felt I am right, and I can sit here on my high horse, and I can write it, and I can have compassion for these people. Now, the last thing they complained about was definitely on me. And I said something that was inappropriate, and then I felt a lot of shame about it. And I want to tell you this because, okay, I don't like talking about when, I've done something wrong, but I think it's important that we're open about it. So when we then had put the dog to sleep, and I think I normally have the chat with them before. I say, have you thought about what you would like to do? Would you like cremation, and so on, so on. So, you go through the thing, and and I always say, it's only if you had already talked about it, if you had decided it, then we can settle it now. And I always say, but you do not have to decide now. You can just take this leaflet home, and we will keep your animal wrapped up in the little blanket until you then call us in a couple of days, and you can let us know. It's not a problem. I don't pressurize them. So they felt that I had pressurized them with, again, I didn't agree with it, but that's the impression they got. And then they wanted a specific casket, and I go through the formula and I say, okay, so can you sign here? And this is the box you tick for this that you chose, and so on, so on. So I tick the box, and then as I'm processing the account, and I'm kind of like just going through the last thing with them. The nurse points out that I have ticked the wrong box. So instead of like a wooden casket, I would have gotten like a scatter tube or something along those lines. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? And they had changed I think they had changed the euthanasia form, the consent form slightly, and and the boxes had moved around. So I just kind of ticked the one that it normally is, but it had moved around or something along those lines. I can't remember. And I was a little bit shocked. I thought out loud, which was a big mistake in front of the owners. I said, oh shit, like I don't know how many box I've sent off in the wrong boxes then, thinking out loud, like, oh my God, they changed it and I didn't realize, no? And the owners took that, and of course the owners heard that, which I didn't say it, meaning they should hear it, and they got the impression that I just didn't care, that I didn't give a shit, that I would just like happily cremate or not cremate the dog or send it back in whatever I just fancied, right? And then they said, did you take the right one this time? And I said, yeah, of course, yeah. She realized that, thank God we got nurses. She realized, and this is the right one. Look, and I show them, to make sure. But they felt this was really inappropriate, and I felt like I didn't care. And I can see that, right? Because for me, that was just something I just said without thinking about it. But in that moment, obviously they had already been triggered, which I wasn't aware of that at that point about me placing the catheter in front of them. And they were then, triggered by then. I think then they were looking for things to go wrong, right? And now it was like cherry on the cake. Now also, I don't care about what happens to the dog afterwards, right? And when I read that, I was like, I could just feel myself getting like red in my, I got like, the skin just like really hot in my face. And I felt a lot of shame because I thought, yeah, dang, Gunilla, that was really inappropriate. And that was actually, it could come across as rude and it could come across as I don't care, which is obviously not what I meant. I was just like shocked that, oh God, shit, have I done this more? No? And then and I wrote that, I said, like, I'm really sorry, that wasn't appropriate. And I can see how it would come across that I don't care, which is not the case at all. I realized like, this is really important. No? And, but there's a big difference when we get a complaint and we are like, oh shit, yeah, I did really not do great. Or we get a complaint and we are like, whatever do you mean? This is the right way to do it. How can you be mad about this? And I feel like this complaint was one that just took me through the full spectrum of feelings and thoughts and defensiveness and then like shame because, oh my God, and somebody else reading that, if my boss had seen that I had said like literally like, oh shit, I don't know how many dogs I've sent off in wrong boxes. Then, how would they react? Was I gonna be told off? And I felt bad about it. And obviously, I think thinking about complaints, this is not the worst thing you can get, right? Because the dog was supposed to die and then I killed it. But obviously, worst complaints are when they die and it wasn't supposed to happen. And then there's a whole thing around it, no? But um, like the last that same week, I had a dog, a French bulldog, that came in with some like facial seizures and just like really vague symptoms, and was clinically absolutely fine. And I sent home just to monitor and see what happened. And then she had like a massive seizure 5 hours later and just died. As far as I know, I haven't got a complaint about that. But if that was a complaint, then that is, for me, that's more serious, such and such, because like, oh God, like, did I miss something? Now we have to really look into how do I do my consultations? How do I do the histories? How do I offer diagnostics, treatments? Did this dog die because I missed something? That is very different when it's more like this complaint I had that was more about my attitude, like how I proceeded, how we interpreted each other, my words that were said. The outcome was the desired one. It was just not the way they wanted it to happen, right? So it was more a question of communication. And I felt a lot of shame around this one as well, because like I pride myself of how I communicate and how clear I am and how much empathy I have and how I can read clients and how I always like give them time and I validate them and I listen to them. And then like I just get like a whole email where everything I did was just wrong. And it felt really bad and it sat with me much longer than I actually would have expected it to sit. Like where my brain just kept coming up with, but you said that, but what if you did that? Well, from now on, you'll have to do this. And like just really, I really had to rein it in to evaluate and say, okay, so what did I actually do here, right? And I think I wish I kind of had waited to respond to the complaint until I had sat and journaled on it and done some evaluation before I did it. And I think that's something I'm evaluating just now that I will going forward. It's just that when you get a complaint and you have to answer it, we just want to get it out of our hair as soon as possible. Because I feel once you answer it and you say what happened and you kind of put your point of view across, then it's kind of like you kind of like you can let it go. Now it's in their hands. Now you just have to wait to see if they take it any further, right? But I think for the future, I will definitely, even if it's a bit more painful in that moment, to stop and journal on it and give it like maybe 24 hours before I answer, because doing it that quickly, then I started, second guessing what I had said to them, what I had answered in the email, and should I have been less, was I too defensive? Was I too this? Was I too that? Right. And it just goes to show, and I want to share this as well to show you that, I have been doing this stuff with coaching and self-awareness and journaling and all that shit now for like 5 years. And I am so self-aware and I can recognize my feelings. I have like a thesaurus with emotions and I can like name them all. I'm so well versed in this, and I coach people on this and I write about it, and it still fucking hits me when I get a complaint about something that's at the end of the day not that important, because it's not like even me killing somebody or doing something really horribly wrong, or like a lot of puppies died because I gave them something wrong. This is literally something that is just about communication and how you come across and how you direct, how you lead the owners. And it still affected me that much, and I want to share with you, because when you feel really bad, if you had a complaint, whether it was then, and now you can recognize it, right? When it happened, you can recognize, are you getting really defensive and righteous and they're not right? And I have to show them that they're wrong because you think that what they say is not reasonable? Or do you go to the other side? Because as soon as you see the complaint coming in, you're like, oh shit, I knew I did that wrong. I knew I did that wrong. And then you feel you're wrong. You feel you're full of shame. You feel like, oh my God, and now your ears all red and burning, and you just feel like, oh my God, right? Like, recognize as well which one of them it is, and also don't feel bad for for feeling shit and for not knowing how to handle it. Because if I can handle it, and not I'm saying that I can handle everything, but if you're just starting to do all this self-awareness and feeling your emotions, and you haven't done a lot, and you started following me or following someone else, and you're like, this is really difficult. Yes, it is really difficult. It is very difficult to be singled out, in black and white, and saying you did all this wrong, and we straight away turn it around to I am wrong, I did all this wrong, or you are wrong and I am right. And it's that the emotions just ride really, really high. And that, I think, for coaching wise, it is very, very good to when you get a complaint, to run it, if you have a coach, if you have a mentor, to run it through with them, and just go, what do you think? Like, what would you have done, or this and the other, to kind of like talk it through, um, or journal on it. So use the tools here, sit in the, I'm feeling shame and it's normal, this and the other. But I think also, like, there's only so many complaints we can take because it is really hard work. And I think, and doing this work, what I'm doing now with you, like all these podcasts I've done, like how to handle overwhelm, how to set boundaries, it will help prevent you from getting complaints. Like, I get very, very few. I get very few, and it's very rare that it's just about me. Normally, I just have to kind of be the one chirping in about a case that I was like very briefly involved in or saw, because I am so self-aware and I can set healthy boundaries so I don't lose my shit, and I don't do a lot of things that people can complain about, because I just tend to be more stable throughout the day, and I don't tend to have like all these like inner conversations going in my brain, interrupting me, not allowing me to work properly, and give space for complaints, right? So this is why I love this work and what I do, because it will both help you get through the complaint, which is really hard, and it does hit us at our core. And I can confirm with all of you that always complain about complaints, yes, it is really hard, and it touches us in so many ways, our ego, our pride, our identity. But also, you can use this work to prevent complaints, because you will get better at not feeling under attack. You will get better at assuming positive intent, and have better communication with the owners, and be better at listening to them and say, hey, what did they mean here? Or they say this, but I'm sensing something else, because you're not so centered on yourself, being all anxious and all worried, and are they judging me? You can really like put all your attention on them when you calm, and you know your boundaries, and you know where you stand. I hope that really, really helps you. And I hope I didn't trigger anybody with my talk about euthanasia and how I do it. And if you've had a similar complaint, I hope this helps you to kind of like just untangle all the emotions and all the thoughts going through and why it feels so bad. And this is something we definitely going to address in the course that's coming up in September. If you're listening to this in real time, then you should absolutely check it out because it is such a big part of being a vet, of working in customer, any customer facing service. I guess complaints are a thing, but in our industry, it's just so triggering and there's so many emotions going on that you really, really need to know how to handle it. You need to know what's going on inside you. You need to know what the potential clients are maybe thinking. You need to know how to calm yourself down, how to answer it and not make it any worse. And I definitely we're gonna take a whole week in the course and just address this because it is so important. And now I've experienced this firsthand. I thought I was maybe just gonna put it in with, how to be with the clients and how to like communicate and that. But no, there's gonna have a whole week about how to handle complaints and how to prevent them. So I definitely would advise you to check it out. We start in September. It's gonna be 12 weeks, and every week you're gonna get a video from me and a worksheet with a specific subject, and then we're gonna nail in on that all week. We're gonna be 15 people together, and where everybody are gonna work through it, and we're gonna work through it in real time. You're gonna try it out, what you learn, and you're gonna bring it into group coaching, and you also get 2 half an hour with me with individual coaching twice a month for those 3 months that it runs. So sign up now via the link in the show notes and check it out. And I can't wait to see you there. And until then, hopefully a complaint-free week. And I love you all. Take care. Bye.